Hello and welcome back, consumers. I'm Altari, the professional gamer, and this is another PAX Friday review, the show where we talk about all the fun, interesting, new, and exciting information that has dropped for PAX Day over the last week. And this week was PvP week. We just released our interview section for PvP with Pater and Solka, and we learned a lot with this week's developer interview. And if you haven't had a chance to go and watch that yet, it's linked down below. We also released an accompanying video with some active commentary from me showing a lot of the PvP footage that we had as the background for the developer interview. So you should definitely check both of those videos out, and that was a really big part of the week. But in today's PAX Friday review, what we're going to be going through is the blog post that was posted in accompaniment with our videos that also came out. So let's go ahead and get on into it. But if you haven't done so already and you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with any of your friends who might be interested in PAX Day. All right, let's go and get into this blog post. All right, so here we are. We're going to do a little bit of a different format than me showing you on the official Discord, which all of you should definitely be joining on. But this is a blog post from PAX Day's website. So we're just going to go ahead and go through this and see if there's any new information that we can glean from this. Here it says we are going to be talking about PvP and the PvP zone in particular that they're putting in for the first iteration of testing player versus player is a zone called Lyonesse. And this is a place where we are not protected by the divine. In fact, when you go through the initial entry point for the map, you do have a little bit of protection, and then we pass these giant stone pillars, and that's where the protection of the divine no longer exists, and you can be murdered by any of your friends. Well, we'll get into who can actually kill you, but you can get murdered and have all of your loot taken is the best way to say that. So one thing that I did want to mention on this particular topic as well is I personally think that it's really important that you don't have the ability to camp people when they spawn in, and there is this area of protection that you do have. It is also important to note that if you go out into the PvP zone, you instantly get flagged for PvP. You go back into the PvE zone that you just came from, the safe space that is where the barrier is, the entry point into PvP, but different from the map entry point. If you go back into that area, you actually can still be killed in PvP for a period of time. I don't know if it's 30 seconds or if it's a minute, but there is a period of time that you actually have a cooldown timer for your PvP activity. So just because you go back into the safe area does not mean that you just have invulnerability from being killed. That's something worth mentioning. Now, in terms of talking about the mechanics, this mode is very much so a nitty-gritty mode. I think I said that in one of our videos as well, but the point of this is it is what is commonly called in the industry an MVP. And that's not like the most valuable player, as some people will tell you, but in game development or in actually like startup development too, the MVP is the minimum viable product. So the minimum viable product, we're actually probably going to do a whole video series on startups in terms of video games. It's an idea that I've been cooking in the back of my head for a while now, and I think we're going to finally do the video on it. But the idea of this MVP, this minimum viable product, in this case is a feature, and that is the PvP feature. So in our case, what is the minimum viable product? It is you can have the first iteration of combat, the first iteration of PvP. Are there any rules or standards that need to be followed? Absolutely not. So you can loot everyone. There's no special rules. It's just you have a play box, go and kill each other and take their loot and do everything there. That's a really important thing, because what Mainframe is going to be doing with that in the future is constantly iterating and improving their MVP based on the testing results that they're going to get from us. So all of the feedback that we give them in this upcoming Wilderness Alpha is going to go directly into shaping how PvP works in the future. The same exact thing applies for this first iteration of their combat system. I wouldn't call this Combat 1.0. I would call this something closer to like Combat 0.01. And the reason for that, again, is the exact same. They're trying to get something into the hands of the people that are actually going to be using it. And they're trying to get feedback so that they can constantly iterate on it and see what things we're interested in and what things we aren't interested in. And they're trying to make adjustments that actually make sense. Mainframe isn't a huge team. They don't have 500 employees that are all working on this. They have less than 100, I think, last time that I checked. So they have to be very efficient with who's doing what, when, where, and how, and why. And all of these things also have a tie-in to how much money things cost for them to continue to develop. And they're being very conscientious stewards of all of the funds that they have available to them. And as a result, they need to be very efficient with how they build, test, and learn from a specific feature. And the best way to do that is with Alpha 2. What is interesting is that Alpha 2 right now is only going to last 7 days. So we only have a week of time where we're all going to be able to test all of these things. So I think it will be really, really interesting to see where all of the players get to. And if any of you are worried in terms of the few of us who are in the Friends and Family Alpha and the gear that we have versus all of you who are going to have to grind all of that gear up, the gear grind takes a very, very long time. I don't think this test is necessarily looking at any form of balance or how the game itself is working in that way, because all the dials are just getting messed around with all of the time. I think what they're looking for is, how's the gameplay run? What are players actually doing? How are they interacting? And they're using those data points, maybe not even necessarily vocal feedback, but what's actually physically happening in the game. What are those metrics telling them? And they're going to use that to infer certain features and how they develop things out. Now, obviously, they want to hear our opinions on the matter too. And now I've gone on a huge diatribe here. But either way, I think it's very, very important that they're getting this MVP out for all of us to test so that we can give them the feedback and they can do the iterations that they need to on this actual feature that's going to exist in the game. So they mentioned balance. Balance is not something that you will find in Lyonesse. It's an imbalanced place. And that's actually important because they want to see how players are going to interact when they're outnumbered, when they're not outnumbered, when it's equal battles, when some sides have a lot more armor than others. And how do those interactions occur and play out? Because that's really what's going to allow them to make different systems as the game progresses. Now, obviously in Lyonesse, a lot of people took note that it is full loot PvP. Anything that's on your body when you die is accessible by your enemy that did the slaying. And it is important to note, while it is full loot, you still have an inventory size. You can't just take everything from everyone that you kill. You're going to have to be able to make choices, especially if you're spending a decent amount of time in surviving in Lyonesse. You're not going to have a lot of available space to actually do things in. If you have a ranged weapon plus a sword and board plus maybe a two-handed weapon plus all of your consumables plus maybe a couple of potions or something like that, you don't have more than like 24 slots to put things in. And just to give you a perspective, I'm pretty sure there's like 12 slots of equipment for a player. So you're going to have to pick what of those 12 slots you actually want from their gear, plus any of the other stuff that they have in their inventory. And the more stuff that you're carrying in your inventory, the bigger the risk you have in continuing to stay in Lyonesse, because now you got a lot of money or got a lot of gear on your body, and if you get killed, now that's a lot more that you're losing than just your starter gear. So the actual important stuff that is located inside of this zone are rare resources. One of the prominent ones that everyone is going there, everyone wants this stuff, is going to be located in this area right here, and this is the pure iron ore mine, and this is where everyone's going to be at. There are a couple of them on the actual map of Lyonesse. This is the only place in the game where you can mine pure iron ore, and the only other places where you'd be able to get the pure iron ore in order to make the other resources in the higher tier levels of armor is you have to refine them up until that point. That is a time consuming process, but you can do it outside of the PvP zone. So there's a cost benefit that is clearly being played with here, where if you want to fast track your advancement, you're going to be in this PvP zone and you're going to be trying to gather those resources, though do make sure you have the appropriate tier pickaxe to even crack the pure iron ore nodes. But it will definitely aid you and your team in actually advancing further and further along here, because of the fact that you can just get access to the ore straight up, as opposed to having to refine it from something like impure iron ore or just regular iron ore as well. So there are a lot of choke points that are located in the map, and if you want to see a couple of those locations, definitely check our commentary video out. We have a couple of things that you can spot from around the map in there, and we might show a little bit more of that into the coming weeks as well, but I do want to leave stuff for people to actually explore. I don't want to just go and spoil the whole thing, but it is important to note that these resources are strategically located, and there are a lot of different resources that you can only find in Lyonesse, the most important one still being that pure iron ore. So then at the very end here, they do also give us our wonderful our dev interview, which you should go and check that out. There are some pretty good tidbits of information there. And then our commentary. If you're wondering why certain footage is being shown, this commentary video is going to do its best to explain that in both video footage and me trying to explain why that footage is there. So highly recommend checking those out. I am a little biased since it is other videos on my channel. But then we also were given a couple of screenshots, and this first one is pretty much a common occurrence here. It's you're going to have players of varying weapon types, and they're going to roll up on each other, and you're going to have to decide if you're killing them or not. Assume that they're going to be trying to kill you. And right here, we do have the example of kind of the entry point, and you can see where these pillars are right here. This point right here is the point of like no return. The second that you pass the barriers on the very end of this, maybe I can zoom in a bit here. So once you pass this location right along here, that's it. You cannot turn back. You have been PvP mode turned on. It's an instantaneous thing. If you try and go back, you're going to have to wait however long the timer is. Like I said, I think it's about 30 to 60 seconds. Anyone can kill you the second that you pass over, and you'll have to run them in circles for a while in order to survive. This picture was actually taken from one of our commentary videos, and you can see right here, this player is being kind of knocked back, and they're losing stamina. You lose stamina when your attacks are blocked. You don't lose stamina when you're just doing attacks and they're not making contact, but that creates a really nice dynamic, and you can do things that I call block canceling, where you're trying to bait the other player out into attacking you, and then you just block instead, which is going to hurt their stamina. And when you do damage stamina, if their stamina gets all the way down to 0, they can't attack. They really can't do anything. They can't sprint away. There's nothing that they can do. If you let your stamina get down to 0, a player should take 100% full advantage of that, and most likely they will be able to kill you if you're able to do that. So always be looking on your stamina. That's only going to become a more and more important thing as time progresses, and using abilities also costs stamina. So if, for example, someone is able to get a shield bash off on you, which chances are, if you do play PvP, you're going to be getting shield bashed at one point or another. And if you're playing PvE, shield bash is like a requirement. I can't recommend this enough. Make sure you have your armor smith in the group that you're playing in, or if you're doing it personally, make sure you get up to a shield tier where you can get shield bash. It is the meta at this point. Into the future, this is kind of the first step of having CC in the game. It's a very strong CC. I personally feel like it should be a lot harder to land, or it's more easily blockable. It's not blockable at all right now, but it should be something where there is this counterplay to it, where if it's going to be something that lasts that long, you need to have a lot more skill involved with landing it, rather than just I run in and I press a button and now everyone's stunned for 6 seconds and I just get 6 seconds of free damage on them. That will not work. There are a couple of solutions that I think the developers are coming up with, so it'll be nice when those get put in. But right now, this is just, we have a CC ability in PvP, and that's the important thing that they want us to be able to test. Then right here, we have just another image from a very chaotic round of fighting. You can see we had, I think in this fight we had over 18 people that were all actively participating, and it was just a whale fest. We had people in no armor, we had people in full armor down here, and it was really, really fun. And in fact, what we're going to do on the Friday of Alpha Week, we're going to have Friday Night Lights. We're going to bring everyone out that we can, and we are going to try and hold the biggest fight that we can in Pax Dei. Friday should be enough time for everyone to band together and get all of the gear that they want to be able to engage in this fight. And we're just gonna run in there. We might organize a couple of line battles as well, where we get two sides to slam into one another, but be on the lookout on the official Discord for that. That's something that I want to help organize with a couple of other members of the community, and I think it'll be a really fun way to kind of go and actually spend some of the gear that we have and have a really fun time doing it. But that's pretty much all that we have for this week in the blog post, and it has been a really fun time getting to cover all of this stuff, and I am truly appreciative to Mainframe for giving this channel the opportunity. I know it's a little bit of a bet when you go with a small content creator, a humble small startup like we are, where we are growing, but it is definitely a gamble for a company to choose a smaller channel to do the promotion for their upcoming alpha. I am fully confident that they're going to be reaching out to much larger streamers and content creators in the future, and probably even for Alpha 2 when it does launch. So be on the lookout for all of those individuals as well. I'm sure they're going to create a lot of cool content, but for the time being, I'm just enjoying the opportunity to share all of this information with all of you. So I hope that you're enjoying it. Next week, we're going to be talking about exploration and PvE related content. So do expect that we're going to be taking a trip down into a dungeon at some point, and we will have a accompanying commentary video for that as well. And it should be a really fun time. So I hope to see you all around for next week's dev interview. And if you made it this far, thank you so much for the support. I really do appreciate it. This channel has blown up over the last year, and it's been really fun getting to cover Pax Dei for all of you. So if you haven't done so already and you do enjoy what we're doing here, do drop us a like and subscribe so that you can get notified when we post any of our future Pax Dei and Pax Dei related content. Share this video with any of your friends who might be interested in Pax Dei, and until next week, I'm Altari, the professional gamer, and I'm going to go enjoy some pizza now.